What's up, everybody? This is Christoforou from the Duran, and I have with me Peter Lavelle, host of RT's CrossTalk. And today we're going to be talking about Angela Merkel under fire over immigration. So, Peter, there was some big developments from the EU over the weekend, and a lot of them stem from immigration. And what we saw is Angela Merkel was already coming into the EU summit hanging by a very thin thread, and now it looks like her power is under jeopardy. Sum up for us what happened over the weekend in the EU and what's going on with Angela Merkel.
Well, if you look at Western media coverage of the conclave, a lot was said. Italy's worries were satisfied and satiated. Not true. The German government will probably maintain in power for a short longer. But Angela Merkel's destiny has been dyed in wool now. I mean, her coalition government will not stand because her coalition partners didn't get what they wanted, and they threatened, and that will continue. The biggest winners are the Alternative for Germany. I think the Eastern Europeans are the big winners in their sense because everything's voluntary. That's so EU, isn't it? Just voluntary. Okay, we wasted a lot of taxpayers' money, and smoozing, going out to the buffet table and have some champagne afterwards. But jack was achieved. Nothing was achieved. All right, it was very, very cosmetic. They're going to put up these holding facilities outside of Europe. It's been going on since 2015. They didn't decide anything over the weekend. They've been doing that since 2015, and it hasn't stemmed the flow. All right, and the frontline countries have not been given any kind of relief. I mean, Macron, again, he's talking about the virtues of the deal. He's not the first port of entry for these people. So, water off the back of a duck. Well, seriously. And Angela Merkel has not resolved any of these issues. This is her Achilles heel, and the European Union pan-European agreement. There's no pan-European agreement. So the fanfare and the nice little gloss they put on it it's meaningless. Okay, so hit the timer because Merkel is not going to withstand much longer. Her time has come. And when she leaves, the immigration problem still won't be resolved.
So Merkel kind of, over the weekend, she hailed this as a victory, as a compromise, like you said. She said that 16 countries bought into this, mostly Spain and Greece, that they're going to take these migrants back from Germany. But then we ran into a snag, and you mentioned it. A lot of the Eastern European countries, as well as Austria and Italy, said, whoa, wait a minute. We didn't agree to take back the migrants from Germany. So give to our viewers exactly dynamics of what I see as a very divided Europe between Merkel saying migrants come on in, and then you have a lot of these Eastern European countries like Poland, Austria, Italy, Hungary, who are saying no way. What's the dynamics on the ground?
Well, see, Merkel is she is speaking for Europe. Well, this is the snag right here. Apparently she isn't, because so many EU members now are balking at this. Policy is not going to be made going out of Berlin. And the Eastern Europeans, the Italians, have said no to this, and it's not going to happen. So this is the train crash right here, because Merkel says you can come to Germany, and unless you're parachuting in, you have to go through other countries to get to Germany. Now, I want to be very clear. Germany does have a demographic issue it has to resolve, all right? Why you think you can do it from people of the Middle East is a mystery to me, okay? I mean, if there's such a migration problem, why don't they go to other Arab countries? How many does Saudi Arabia take? Huh? Qatar? Kuwait? They don't take anybody, all right? And everybody goes to Europe. So the problem is that if Germany wants it, and it's more and more clear that not all Germans want this to happen anymore. Her coalition partners in Bavaria are saying no more. And the rest of Europe, the French can say what they want because they're not a first port of entry. So nothing was resolved. And she's hung her hat on this issue. And it's going to fail. It has failed. So this is where we stand right now. Nothing has been resolved. The Eastern Europeans, the Italians only went along with it because they don't want to be the make or break. They've made their case. They've made their case. They want to see action. No action.
Peter, you lived in Poland, I think, for about 10 years.
Yep.
Why are people in Poland resistant towards Merkel's migrant policy, where people in Germany, or at least Merkel is speaking for the people of Germany, and she's saying, bring them on in? Why do you have this big divide between Poland and Germany, Hungary and Germany, etc.?
Alex, you're from Greece, right?
Yes, I am.
They saw what happened to Greece. Get my drift?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They don't want the same thing to happen again. See, you have to understand is that Poland, particularly Poland, it has a long history of being, it was for over 100 years, as a state, it disappeared. And it fought tooth and nail to come back into existence. And for better or worse, it ended up in the Warsaw Pact. And then when finally they're in an independent country, they go into another orbit of another empire, the EU. And one of the biggest problems that most people just don't understand is that with the end of the Cold War, Eastern Europe is desecularizing while Western Europe continues to secularize. Russia is desecularizing. And so what the Poles, the Hungarians specifically are saying, well, we want to be rich like the EU, but we want to keep our culture. We want to keep our traditions. We want to keep our language. We didn't fight so hard to get to this point to give it all away. And why should Berlin be making these decisions for us? They don't get this, okay? And Polish people are very conservative. Sorry, that's just their cultural makeup. That's the way they are. And like I said, the demonstration effect. They saw what happened to Italy, what happens to Greece. They don't want a repeat of that. And I perfectly understand it. And particularly if the European Union is supposed to be based on democratic principles, and the Poles have a voice. And they said, no, that's how democracy works.
So go back to Merkel internally now. So she has the CSU, and she has a lot of trouble with her coalition, keeping it together. And we had Seehofer, who's her interior minister, yesterday, in some breaking news, he offered to resign. Now Merkel's going through troubles, obviously, in the EU, and she's got a lot of dissent from a lot of the EU countries. Tell us what's going on inside of Germany and how those dynamics further complicate Merkel's position.
Well, I think for her coalition partners, the Christian Democrats, they're just saying, fine, we have to have our own immigration policy separate from the rest of the European Union. Again, sovereignty, that elusive word for the European Union, they're looking at, they have to control their own borders, because what happens is that people come in to first port of entry, and then all they do is migrate themselves up to Germany. And the Germans are saying, no. Just because somebody gets off in Italy or gets off in Greece doesn't mean we have to take them. And what they're saying is they want to be able to control it. It's not that they're completely against immigration. They just want a more controlled immigration, because basically Germany ends up being the dumping ground. And they're saying, no, that's not how we want the European Union to work with immigration. It has to be done across the board, and everybody, if the European Union collectively accepts that there is a unified immigration policy, then fine, let's have a conversation. But because of Merkel's actions, everything's been very unilateral. And for a lot of her conservative coalition partners are saying this uncontrolled effect is not acceptable to their electorate. I mean, people didn't vote for this, Alex. They didn't vote for it, and they want to have a democratic conversation about it. So this is one of the and plus they see Merkel is really wounded by this issue, and they think that they might be able to cut a better deal with other coalition partners. Okay, the Christian Democrats are always the one that make or break coalitions, and everybody knows that. Okay, they've got a lot of power, and they see that Merkel is a wounded beast, and her time has come. And so they don't want it to stick with her. They don't want they don't want to go down with her. Okay. They want to be able to have a much more autonomy in making decisions. And they also see how this immigration issue is very popular with the voters of the Alternative for Germany, and they don't want to lose that electorate. Let's have a conversation about immigration. Don't let it all go to one party or a few group of parties. They want to be part of that conversation. And Merkel has just burned so many bridges. I mean, I was thinking, before the summit, she was on like a tightrope walking across. Well, the tightrope is broken, and she's hanging on to it now and dangling. And everybody knows she's toast. Yeah. Okay, that's when people are going to start making decisions.
So if you had to predict how when you say she's toast, how much time are you looking at? Maybe a couple. Is this a matter of a couple of weeks, or is this a matter of a year or two? I mean, what kind of time frame do you see this?
I think it's going to be. It'd be hazard to say a date, but I think it's rather sooner than later. Okay, because the summit was supposed to resolve her political problem. It hasn't been resolved. And so this has been a defeat for her. Because of the bureaucrats and all of these vested interests in the bureaucracy of this whole thing, they're going to put a good gloss on it. But I mean, a cold, sober mind looking at it and say, she failed. And the Christian Democrats are now beginning to decide what they're going to do. And if they don't start making a move pretty soon, they're just going to go right down with her. That's what they don't want that to happen. Sooner than later. Sooner than later.
And who do you think? Do you think that Germany, if they lose Merkel, do you think they can fill the void of leadership in the EU? Because up until today, obviously, Germany has been the de facto leading country of the EU, and they've pretty much set policy going forward for the EU. Or are we looking at maybe a different dynamic where Macron or someone like that, or France says, I'm going to step in and take the leadership role of the EU? How do you see things unfolding in the European Union?
It seems to me that this is really one of the great dilemmas of the entire European Union project, is that there's this hesitation, grounded historically, not to have Germany basically be the capital of the United States of Europe because of its economic strength. France can't carry on that load. And because of this historical baggage, you've gotten the politics of the EU is technocratic. So when you say leader, well, there are no leaders anymore, okay? That's one of the biggest problems. I mean, the popular leaders in the EU are like in Hungary. I mean, and Orban is treated as an outcast, but democracy actually works in Hungary. I mean, people genuinely support him. So this is one of the great dilemmas of the European Union because it's so diverse. It hasn't been able to smooth out all the differences from Ireland all the way down to Greece. It's run on a technocratic basis, and leadership is at a minimum all the time. And so Germany inevitably has to be the moving force. I don't want to say leading force, but moving force. And how the Europeans resolve that is that's squaring a circle right now. This is really not good. And we can throw in another layer, Donald Trump. Okay. And this is, I mean, if the immigration problem wasn't enough, now the entire North Atlantic alliance community is in question right now, and in a more serious way than ever in my lifetime. Okay. Because the Americans and the Europeans have had their ups and downs. This is a completely different animal right now. And I think it's quite serious because Trump, what we've seen, that he does things with impunity. He doesn't care. Yeah, he stands as.
Yeah, you read my mind into that question, and making matters even worse for Merkel is that you have the Trump factor, and we're going to do another video on this because the Trump factor is not only NATO, it's also trade wars and tariffs. So before we do another video on this, Peter, touch a little bit upon how Trump further maybe accelerates Merkel's demise, and maybe Trump wants to accelerate Merkel's demise. Touch upon this Trump factor before we close out this conversation.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things, I think a lot of people probably aren't aware of this, but Merkel supported Hillary Clinton. And this is a little personal. You know how Trump is. Everything's personal. After his election, Merkel met with Barack Obama. And what was it? It was at G20, yeah. And, that Trump saw those pictures. And people told him.
That stung.
And now Merkel is the leader of the free world. That was etched into Trump's brain, okay? And he holds a grudge. Call a spade. He holds a grudge. And he knows, because of the trade relationship, that at the end of the day, it's not Angela Merkel. It's the captains of industry in Germany. Don't you think they've got a back channel to the U.S. Treasury Department, to the State Department? Don't you think they're talking to them? These are very powerful entities. And then they're going to say, you want to get rid of Merkel? Sure. That's a no-brainer, okay? I mean, we always love to focus on personalities and all that, and sometimes we should. But, Angela Merkel, her power doesn't stem from her charisma. Her power stems from the fact that she's been able to have a constellation of forces around her that will support her. And German industry and companies have. And now they're saying there's no reason why anymore. And, Germany's economic future may be in the hands of Donald Trump, okay? And Angela Merkel, I mean, the optics of it, I'll tell you everything. She's not going to be a person that can represent German interests anymore. And so they're going to throw her under the bus. That's called politics, Alex. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, and I think there's no doubt that looking at Trump's personality, going back to personality, I can't see Trump getting along with an Angela Merkel on a personal level. I mean, the two just don't. It's obvious they just don't.
Well,
gel.
But it's obvious too that she holds him in contempt. I mean, and you know what? Merkel's like this, Trump is like this. I mean, there's an asymmetry of forces in play right now, and it would be very different if this were an Adenauer or a de Gaulle. Okay, I mean, someone of stature, of gravitas. But, the Europeans are throwing Merkel under the bus, too. I mean, I don't think she's a very popular person in Greece, okay? Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, she doesn't have the gravitas to represent Europe, and that's why everyone's fleeing the ship like rats, okay? She's all alone, and she has her own self to blame, okay? It wasn't as if Germany didn't have resources. A good politician uses limited resources in a very effective way. Just ask Vladimir Putin, okay?
There you go. And we're going to touch upon this on another video on Trump's impending trade war with Europe and what I guess is really a target at Germany, because he is targeting the auto industry and he's throwing it out there pretty openly. I mean, he's not hiding the fact that he's going to go after Europe. And that's Trump. That's his personality. So, guys, we're going to be putting up a video on that as well. Peter Lavelle, host of RT's CrossTalk, thank you very much for an awesome analysis on Angela Merkel and her limited time in power at the helm of Germany and the EU. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below. Also, click the
Bye-bye, Angela. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Angela. Also, click that notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. And please go to the Duran shop. Pick up a t-shirt. Help support the Duran. Until next time, take care.